Iram decided to try to revive the taste of stewed zucchini in his memory, and taking a piece in his mouth, he tried to remember the taste that he felt in the game. But no, Iram could not feel anything. Deciding not to be disappointed, because there was no need for despair, he thought about the miracle that he could taste and cook in the game. The food tasted like chewing gum that had lost its sweetness for a long time. There is nothing worse for a cook than this. That's why Iram was so upset. But now everything was different, so he had hope. There in the game, the young man finally felt that he could live. But there was no taste of food in life. Barely finishing his meal, he didn't feel if the food was delicious, but since he lost his sense of taste, he was able to eat properly for the first time. How long will Iram have to live like this? Will the hero be able to recover one day? Now that the hunger was satisfied, it was possible to play once. After drinking the ampoule, Iram put on headphones and entered the game. Rice received a horn of strength that could beat quite a few, and he was also able to see the weaknesses of one-star monsters. Tip: concentrating all your power on the tip of the weapon while dealing a critical hit adds 15% to the attack power. Rice was working today and cooking some snacks, and decided that maybe then it was worth cooking European cuisine. Did he have the ingredients for this? He wondered. Then a horde of lizards came over him. The young man had never tried to cook it before, but it was a great chance to try it. If the fight was very tough, the meat would become tasteless, so Rice hoped that the lizards would not resist much, in which case he needed to chop them up. And he killed the lizards. The passing players looked at Rice, the guy from the official page. It seems that it was he who defeated the giant unicorn rooster. Why did he catch lizards? The audience did not understand. If you catch a red mini spider that lives in the forest, you can sell its web. At the same time, the lizard table is very small, so the players were not interested in them. One of the young men did not understand why Rice did not know that it was possible to sell cobwebs, and he thought that this guy was amazing when he saw how Rice defeated the unicorn rooster. Apparently it was a mistake. The young man suffered from a competitive illness. But in fact, Rice had his own reason to fight the lizards, namely that he didn't want to eat spiders. After killing enough lizards, he decided that he had enough. Then he saw something strange. It was a magic attack stone. A magic stone that can be found in the body of defeated monsters. When attacked, attack +5 and a magic stone of protection +5. He didn't know what it was, but deciding that it was something edible, he decided to add this. The screen showed an inscription about a perfect feat and a human ally. The young man did not understand who the ally was and what it meant. Then a huge spider got up to him from behind and the guy was scared. But the spider asked not to be afraid of him. It was the lady of the forest and she had a task for the young man. Would he listen to her? Achievement: is this person an ally? Mission requirements: do not harm any red mini spider from the forest and kill 100 lizards. Reward: getting access to the secret task Red Spider Queen. The young man was surprised that in the name of the achievement there was a question. What kind of mission was it? Rice thought that if he was an avid gambler, he would understand. Maybe it was enough just to stay in place. Why didn't anything happen? Rice thought, and began to look at the spider. If you look closely, you could see that the creators had done a thorough job, depicting every little thing, which is why this spider looked so disgusting. And the spider asked the young man how long he was going to stand like a pillar. Was he an ally or not? Another player was watching them from behind the trees. Do spiders approach so close to users? This player has seen this for the first time. Maybe it's a quest, he thought. No matter how you look at it, but the fact that Rice received the task was already surprising. There are not so many users in the game who managed it. Unlike other games, reality requires players to fulfill special conditions in order to receive a task. As a rule, professional, secret, rare and epic quests, which were only recently discovered, ignite rivalry between users. And the player, wanting to find out what kind of quest it was, thought about how he could get closer. Rice noticed the guy and greeted him. He was thinking hard about the spider, which he strongly disliked. He told Rice that he was strongly attracted to this situation and therefore he left. Then the spider pierced the guy. The guy did not understand why the spider suddenly pierced him and only the boots remained of the young man. Rice looked at it and did not understand what was happening. The screen said that it was the enemy's shoes made of lizard skin and red spider webs. The equipment was made for Ader, not available in the store, gave +7 dexterity. Rice was thinking about Ader, who made these boots himself. It looks like you can create equipment in this game, but what was Rice to do? At that moment, someone was following the young man and saw that he had received a useful item, since it was a shoe made by hand. This would provide Rice with many opportunities. The second young man who was also following him knew that there were a lot of rumors about Rice, and especially about how polite he was. The second guy also believed that even if a person had good manners, it was hardly possible to throw such objects around. At that moment, Rice was already putting on Ader's boots. The guys watching him wondered why the young man was so happy taking someone else's shoes, because he was a good person. Rice also repeated after other players those moments when they received items. The spider asked the young man for the last time whether he was an ally of the spider or not. Rice remembered that he had to answer, and his answer was positive. The spider began the story that initially all the red spiders lived in harmony in the forest. But one day lizards suddenly appeared and began to eat his cubs. After analyzing the whole process from beginning to end, the spider thought that the princess who lost the competition to the leader in the nearest jungle came to the forest and dragged a whole crowd with her. As long as the princess is alive, the spider children will suffer, and eventually there will be no one left. If the young man is really an ally, then he will kill the princess. Rice thought that he would become an ally of the spiders and agreed to help the spider. On the screen was an inscription about a secret quest from the Red Spider Queen. Requirements: defeat the lizard princess. Reward: a new skill, a secret achievement. And the queen replied that she would wait. The young man replied that he would try. Quest: this is already starting to look like a real game. I wonder, the young man thought. But being hungry, I decided to cook a barbecue from lizard meat. He tried it in Vietnam. The computer said that cooked food of high quality has a chance to get a temporary buff or a permanent increase in characteristics. The young man looked at his glowing hands and thought that he must have gotten the skill from cooking and decided to cook more. In front of him was a delicious lizard meat kebab, satiety plus 20, protection plus 1. Wondering if eating it would increase his abilities, because there are so many unique functions in reality, the young man looked at his food. And after tasting a piece of rice, he was speechless, thinking that this dish would look like fatty pork. But it was like a combination of fresh chicken meat and the texture of frog legs. It was exactly the taste of fried lizards with hot sauce from Vietnam. Even the dry taste was the same at the end. The screen said that after eating delicious lizard meat kebabs, player Rice's abilities increase. Defense and stamina have increased. If that was the case, Rice thought that even just by cooking, he would be able to increase his abilities and realized that he was starting to get a little greedy. The meat was over, and getting up, the young man had to go hunting to complete the task. The weather was wonderful, and taking up arms, Rice began to hunt lizards. There were quite a few of them today, and the young man fought with them with all his might. They attacked Rice at the same time, but there was nothing to be done. Rice did not plan to use such methods. It even seemed to him that he had learned to hunt. A girl was watching him, and she was quite curious. She thought that the boss was doing a good job and was looking forward to it. And Rice thought he heard laughter, but didn't understand what it was. Eating meat from lizards on a stick and simultaneously hunting the same lizards, the young man thought about how delicious it was, and decided that he needed to cook more kebabs. Hunger is 20%. Sitting on a rock next to the defeated lizards, Rice thought that he was hungry again. Then a red spider crawled up to him and gave him a ball of thread. The young man, taking the ball, thanked the spider. The screen was writing about the best adhesive web. It was used by red spiders during hunting. Although it is incredibly elastic and sticky, however, the thread is very strong. The young man, looking at the thread, thought about the spider that gave it to him. Was it really because he defeated the enemies of the lizards? And I decided to save it until I needed it. Sitting by the fire and frying another barbecue, screens popped up next to him. On one it was written that the mana stone can be found in the bodies of monsters, protection plus 5. On the other was an achievement called the Lizard's Nightmare, a requirement, kill 200 lizards, a reward for defeating the lizards. The next screen wrote about a brutal appetite. The requirement was to eat the same food 100 times. The reward, satiety plus 100. Another screen wrote about a weak spot where you needed to focus all your strength on the tip of the weapon and hit the target, added 25% to the attack power, and consumed 40 satiety points. Meanwhile, Ader recovered and found Rice. Approaching the young man, he apologized and asked if this young man was Rice. The guy was eating his barbecue and saw the one whose shoes he was wearing. He explained to Ader that he was just interested in trying out his shoes and now he would return them to him. But Ader suggested that the young man keep it for himself, because he could create a selection again, because it was one of the tied items. Rice asked what this meant, and Ader explained to the young man that the tied items meant that if the player receives and uses them, they become his property. Rice began to apologize and ask how he could return it, but Ader said that there was nothing to be done from the moment he stupidly died. If it wasn't for that oversight on his part, when now would he get the materials to make such shoes, and left gloomier than a cloud. Rice tried to stop him, asking what materials he needed because he could share. Ader was surprised, and the young man said that all this happened through his fault, and he must now help. Ader thought that the young man was pretending to be kind and would not just give him the materials. Rice took out everything he had and listed it to Ader, and when he saw Rice's best sticky web, Ader asked about it, and Rice simply replied that it was her. Then Ader began to tell the young man that this was the best of all materials. How could he not know about it? Rice replied that he thought all spider threads were the same. Ader was surprised how the young man could not know the basics. Rice said that reality was his first game. Ader took the web and gladly accepted it, since it was offered to him. Then the young man asked Ader, "Playing the game you get an advantage by getting items, was it so?" Ader replied that it was so. In such games everything was based on objects. He was surprised at Rice, who did not know such things, and asked the young man about the mission related to the lizard princess. Rice was only interested in what it tasted like, because he would need to get new equipment. He didn't even have the initial one. Was his equipment really that bad? Even in the game, it was impossible to survive at the expense of achievements alone. Ader offered to do it together, and taking out the materials, he began to make something out of them. His profession, a craftsman. It was the first time Rice had seen someone so focused on his work. He couldn't just do nothing, and he went about his business while Ader was busy with his own. People passing by looked at these two. Some did not recognize the assistant who was next to Rice, because they saw this user for the first time. Ader was clearly not an assistant, and Ader did his job, and Rice praised him. Ader decided to ask what the young man was cooking next to him, because he was clearly good at cooking. Trying on his new shoes, the artisan was convinced that they were even better than the previous one. Since the materials were of high quality, the shoes turned out fine, and all thanks to Rice. Shoes made of lizard skin and red spider webs gave +10 to dexterity, +5 to attack power, and +5 to defense. And Ader tried on the boots and gave Rice a gift, because he did not like to be in debt to someone, and asked the young man to look. For sticky
Rice
net in his hands, it was a network of 30 sticky webs and was used against monsters with 2 stars, while stunning for 10 seconds. Ader was glad that the young man liked it, and Rice said that the network would be very useful to him when he met the lizard princess. Ader said goodbye to the young man and wished him a successful hunt. He had to quit the game and go to bed. Rice was surprised that Ader was leaving, and saying that he would add Rice as a friend, he left. Rice remembered about the guy's name. He didn't have time to ask about it, and he decided that he would find out next time. In fact, he saw his name when he shared the materials, but he just forgot. The young man was thinking about how much he had received and thought that he would need to repay a new friend, and now he needed to slowly start completing the task. In front of him was the lizard princess. The young man had to overcome her. Then he was attacked by the other 2 lizards that were protecting the princess. Rice had to defeat 2 to get to the princess. I had to be careful. Rice's current total strength equals a high-quality lizard meat skewer. Concentration on the end of the weapon and a striking blow from Rice. But looking at the lizards after the blow, they were still alive, and Rice did not understand why. Then he was attacked by a lizard. It was absolutely not like a battle with unicorn roosters, and even worse, until he even got to the boss. Recognizing weaknesses, concentrating strength at the tip, and other skills, Rice couldn't rely on them alone and win in such a state. Even when the young man met the main unicorn rooster, they helped him, and now he will have to fight alone. And Rice decided to try something out and start with a lower level magic stone. Having cracked the stone, he received +5 to attack power and +5 to defense and rushed into battle. Concentrating, he searched for a weak spot and attacked the lizard, and having slain both, he was now ready to fight the princess. Meanwhile, the lizard princess recognized him as an enemy. If her wars were so strong, then the princess, and without saying anything, he saw how the lizards were ready to attack again. The young man did not understand how they were able to recover, and he went on the attack again. But then the princess joined the fight. The young man barely dodged her blow. The screen showed stage 2 and that the princess had passed the molting stage and was furious. It was only the second stage, and the young man's glasses and life were already running out. And then he remembered about the adhesive net. He could use this network that Ader gave him, and throwing a net over the lizard's face, he attacked him, but the blow threw him off with his paw, and the young man had too little life left to strike another blow. 7 seconds of the stunning effect from the grid has almost passed. Rice didn't have the strength to defend himself, and he thought he was doomed to fail in this battle. But this did not frighten the young man, because thanks to this game he was able to smell the earth on the battlefield and gain experience in battles. Night came, and the victory over the strongest unicorn rooster added plus 15 points to the young man's attack power. The young man had completely forgotten about this award, and inflamed with power, he used a striking blow on the lizard. The striking blow was so powerful that the young man killed the lizard princess. Unable to believe his eyes, Rice did it. Achievement: the lizard's nightmare, the lizard's strength reward. Now the young man could climb a wall up to 20 meters high. The spectators watching their battle were stunned. Rice beat the princess alone. After all, he was a cook or not, who is he really? Someone just wanted to eat delicious food, and then there was such a sight. The item that the young man received was the body of the lizard princess. The young man did not know what to do with it, and he thought that he should give the body to the spider queen. But how can the young man find her? But immediately she appeared in front of him. She saw that the man had avenged their suffering, and since the princess was now dead, the spider people would be able to live freely. All the spectators rejoiced when they saw the lady of the forest. They all thought they had to kill all the spiders. Did Rice have a special quest? Rice talked to the spider and explained that this was his first quest and he did not know if he did well. Did the young man do everything as it should? The lady told him that the young man had done a great service to the spiders. Now the number of lizards in the forest will decrease. But Rice did not understand. If their number decreased, then users would not be able to hunt. It seemed to the young man that there was something wrong with this. But the spider replied that the ruler of the lizards would still return, as long as they were alive. This battle would last forever. But from now on, the spiders will show the lizards what they are capable of. And the spiders began to attack the lizards. Rice did not calm down and asked if this would upset the balance of the system. If all the lizards died, then the players would not be able to hunt them for a while. The spider replied to the young man that he had completed the mission and should receive a reward. The screen said that thanks to Mr. Rice, the forest had once again become a peaceful habitat. The spider lady hopes that this era will last as long as possible. However, a small number of lizards remained alive, and it is possible that in the future a new ruler will replace the defeated princess. And Rice was rewarded with a poisonous projectile and all the characteristics of plus 10. Rice also gained the ability to produce and use poison. Paralyzes monsters of 2 stars and below for 3 seconds. Achievement: initiator of the development of events requirements. To come up with a scenario related to the plot. Award: Profession Innovator. Bonuses came one after another. All the spectators rushed to Rice and praised him. Embarrassed, the young man began to tell that he just tried and somehow managed to overcome the princess, and decided that now he should cook something. Everyone was waiting for the young man to cook something, because many were waiting for the end of the battle to taste his dishes. And Rice decided that since his customers were waiting for a long time, he would also lower the price of his food. Everyone called the district because Mr. Rice started cooking. It wasn't just rumors about his cooking. Rice thought that a lot of people had come and it was good. But it was very difficult to stand by the fire for so long. It had been a long time since he had felt like this. Then someone handed him a handkerchief and offered to wipe himself with it. Rice automatically took it. And then it dawned on him. It was Melina. She used the friend search function and just followed the specified route to find the young man. He also heard about this function for the first time. There were so many interesting options in the game. Said that the most interesting thing in this game is Rice himself. She heard that he had completed the quest and decided to congratulate the young man. He thanked her, saying that nothing could be hidden from the girl. She also replied that if Rice started learning the game, she could also ask about cooking. Then Rice asked what she would like to eat. Melina replied that she would like the dish that he had just cooked, and in return she would help him. Melina had a skill now, too. The young man was happy for her, but he was worried about the situation in front of them. The guys were fighting for a cue to eat Rice's dish, and asking Rice to wait a second. She shouted loudly for everyone to get in line. The guys were almost blown away by her voice and they calmed down. The girl explained that they had enough ingredients so that everyone could get food, so everyone had to wait their turn. And everyone got in line, asking what was on the menu. Chicken kebabs and lizard meat steaks were on the menu. And thanking Melina for calming the customers, the guy put the last piece, asking what kind of roasting she prefers. And as soon as Rice started cooking steak for Melina, a young man came who also wanted a steak made of lizard meat. Rice replied to the young man that the steak was already over, and he was very sorry. But then the young man noticed that Rice was cooking a steak and asked him to sell it to him. Melina grabbed the steak and started chewing it, said it was sold out. The young man was worried that Melina grabbed a hot steak. The newly arrived guest realized that the lady had reserved him and asked if there was anything else prepared earlier, because he had come here specifically to taste Rice dishes. The young man offered the guest a chicken kebab. He just had one left. and the guest took it. Finally, he will be able to taste the food prepared by Rice himself, and, thanking him, began to think to himself. He was also a chef, but why was Rice's food so popular? It couldn't be so delicious, the young man thought. He was waiting for this moment to taste Rice's food. In the game, everyone was talking about him, but it seemed there was nothing special about the young man. Rice couldn't be better than him, and the young man bit off a piece of shish kebab with thoughts of the most ordinary taste. But then the meat pieces overwhelmed him. What was it? The young man did not believe himself. The chicken kebab just pierced him through. It was incredibly delicious. It was hard for the young man to admit it, but the dish had impeccable taste. In our bistro, Devon sat at work and thought about who Rice was, because he was definitely not simple. Even after cooking an ordinary dish, he showed great talent. His ability to keep the secret of cooking amazed Devon. Could it be that Rice is a professional chef? Perhaps it was shown on television, Devon thought. He believed that he was thinking in the right direction, because the young man has an excellently developed technique, so he definitely won competitions and appeared on television. Last night at the game, Rice was scared if their new acquaintance was okay. Melina thought he was overdoing it. He couldn't have fainted because Rice's food was too delicious. The young man was delighted and asked Rice how he achieved such a perfect roasting. The taste was great. He was impressed and asked Rice what kind of seasonings he used to get such a juicy texture. Is this really a secret recipe? Since the young man was also a cook, he wanted to learn this recipe. Rice looked at the young man in surprise. He explained to Rice that he was not joking, because in real life he was in the restaurant industry. Has Rice seen his ID? Asked him by the king of Korean cooking. The place where he worked was very famous, the young man told Rice. In any case, Rice, in his opinion, was also connected with the culinary industry, and as cooks they should share secrets. The young man asked Rice to tell him what the secret of his dishes was. Rice said he was just following the recipe clearly. But the young man did not believe him and thought something was evading the answer, because he also answered annoying newcomers. But Rice wasn't lying. What he said was really true. The king of Korean cuisine thought that the young man did not want to reveal his secrets to the first person he met. After tasting the chicken kebab, he definitely felt a salty taste. Did the young man add salt? Rice used her. Even though it's impossible to get salt anywhere nearby, did Rice buy it? The young man did not buy salt. He just had to be careful and then anyone could find it. What did Rice mean by saying this? That you need to pay attention to every little thing while searching in the forest. Yes, if you look closely at every little thing, then in the end you can find the right ingredient, Rice replied. For example, a salt beetle lived in the forest. If you look closely, you will notice that it is also a source of salt. The young man had a feeling that Mr. Rice wanted to force him to do meaningless, although you can't tell from him that he is such a meticulous person. But the young man was an incredibly generous person and tried to understand the desire not to reveal his secrets, because they had just met. Melina said that this was too much even for a familiar player. If he was so curious, then he could find out on his own. How could he ask for advice when he himself was of no use? Melina asked. After all, he called himself the king of cooking, and he behaved like a beggar that he wants to find out the secret without even making an effort. The young man thought what a nice girl she was, even though she was just a game character. But for some reason it seemed to him that in life the girl was also attractive. But, unfortunately, he already had a girlfriend. And admitting that he overdid it, he asked to be added as friends to Melina. But the girl was angry and saying that he really overdid it, said that now was not the right time to ask such things. Then the king of the kitchen asked to make amends to the girl by buying her food later. The girl already had goosebumps, but the king of the kitchen did not calm down and asked to give him another chance. Rice had finally finished cleaning up and wasn't paying attention to anyone. Melina continued to insist that their new acquaintance apologize to Rice, and not to her if he was really sorry. Then Rice called Melina, saying that he had already finished with the cleaning and therefore would be disconnected. He had to go to work tomorrow. Melina thanked the young man and said goodbye to him. Rice thanked Melina and said that thanks to her the sale went smoothly, said goodbye, and Melina also decided to disconnect. The king of the kitchen asked to wait and asked if the guys were friends in the game. He wanted to send a request to both, no matter in what role, as an acquaintance or colleague, it didn't matter to him. But Rice and Melina are already out of the game. The king of the kitchen felt miserable when he was abandoned like this. Devon sat at work and thought about what now that Rice and Melina were so disconnected to them. It will be difficult to meet all together again. What was the problem? Devon didn't think he'd done anything wrong. What kind of problems could there be? The manager was thinking to herself about what was happening with Devon. It looks like he was fooling around again. If the director sees it or finds out, he will be furious. She was very uncomfortable. Then a man came in and said that he was alone. He was offered to sit down where it was convenient and now he would be served a menu. But he already knew what he wanted to order and ordered one bibimbap. It was Lim Cham Meng, a 67-year-old man. He had been here before in the Anar Bistro. He was wondering if the director was in place today. He didn't see that rude cook at first, and then noticed that he was cooling off. The man decided to give them a second chance. Then he received a lot of flattering reviews about this place, but he still did not like it. And having asked to put an egg on top of the bibimbap, he began to wait. Devin was unhappy that it was necessary to submit special orders, and he asked the assistant to make a bibimbap. But the young man did not understand why he had to cook if he was here. Devin was unhappy that the young man started arguing with him, because in the kitchen his word was law. It was a test of Iram's abilities. Devin replied and asked for less words and more action, and wondered aloud how Iram could serve in the army being so lazy. The girl listened to their conversation and thought about the idiot Devin, who managed to be so arrogant and behave worse and worse every day. Lim Cham was served his bibimbap. The egg was well cooked. The man did not see any more changes. For many months, he visited various restaurants in Korea to find the most delicious bibimbap. Now he can even determine by appearance what it will taste like, and this one looked very ordinary, he thought. But since Lee McKim was already in the institution, he decided to try. And only when he took a spoon in his mouth, he felt harmony, and with the heat of the heat, what was the taste? Perfectly cooked egg yolk, perfectly cooked rice combined with fragrant sesame oil and vegetables. It was not like what I had tried before. It was amazing. It was so delicious. The man was beaming with happiness. Who would have thought that the dish would be so good? This taste can be compared with aesthetic pleasure. Excellent, amazing. Even if I ate this bibimbap every day, he wouldn't bother a man a bit. He sincerely believed that everyone should have tried it. He had never received such pleasure before. It was exactly the taste that Lim Cham had been looking for a long time. The triumph of taste. And he decided to ask the manager. She was happy to help him. And then Lim Cham asked if the cook had changed in the establishment, but the girl replied that everything was the same as always, asking if there was something wrong with his food. But the happy man simply replied that he had thoroughly enjoyed the meal. And he said that the whole point was that when he came earlier, the taste of the food was different. So he asked. Lebushka said that he was not the first, and he asked what the girl meant. She said that lately visitors have been constantly praising bibimbap. And the man asked if the restaurant had changed the cooking method, and the girl said that the man guessed correctly. In fact, the truth was that the bibimbap was cooked not by the chef, but by his assistant in the kitchen. The man couldn't believe his ears, how the assistant could cook this. Although Lim Cham's knowledge of cooking was not so deep, however, he tried many bibimbaps. To achieve the perfect combination of rice with vegetables, this young man managed to achieve harmony of taste. He is without a doubt a professional chef with a lot of experience. But why, being so talented, he works as an assistant? Lim Cham continued to praise the bibimbap while paying at the checkout. He couldn't believe it was just a kitchen assistant who cooked it. The girl saw that apparently the dish really pleased the man. Both the meat and rice were cooked perfectly, so the result is on the face, Lim replied. He looked at the young man and asked the girl if he could talk briefly with their new employee. And the girl called Iram to come over because the visitor, but wanted to talk to him. The young man greeted the guest. Lim asked the young man if he really cooked the bibimbap, because he was amazed. Iram's skills were amazing. And Lim told the young man that the bibimbap he cooked was the best he had ever tasted. He told Iram that earlier he had already come and eaten that dish in their establishment. Last time the bibimbap was not bad, but there was nothing special about it. But what he answered today was nothing compared. Truly what can be called hot cuisine. And Lim Cham gave Iram his business card. It was strange for him that the young man worked as an assistant with his own skills, but apparently he had his own reasons for that. And nevertheless, if Iram needed help, he could turn to him. Iram thanked Lim Cham, and he told the young man that if he wanted to be a real chef, he could contact him and he would take him to a position corresponding to his skills. Thanking for the food, the man said goodbye. Everyone was delighted that Iram received a business card. Iram looked at the business card, what kind of person it was, and saw the name of the restaurant Chen Men. At that moment, Devin called out to him, asking what the young man was doing. The young man explained that he was called by a visitor, and therefore he left for a while. Devin could not believe his ears how a visitor could call a young man, and said that how a visitor dared to behave like that. And if he told him to jump from the roof, Iram would jump, and Iram apologized. Devin was angry at him. How could he leave? Was he just an assistant, or did he think he could behave like that? Devin asked the young man. Iram apologized to Devin. He continued to be surprised by Iram, who was allegedly called by a guest, and Devin thought that the young man was probably just chatting on the phone. Then the manager intervened in the conversation and said that a visitor really called Iram. D1 was angry about the whole situation. Iram calmly apologized and said that he would take note of the chief's words. Devon continued, from the first day, Iram told him only one thing: how well he knows how to listen. If the young man can't even fulfill this promise, then how is he going to continue working here? Devon didn't care what the young man was doing outside the kitchen. But it was reality. Did Iram understand it? Devon asked him. Didn't the young man look down on this institution because he doesn't care about its fate? According to Devon, Iram had already tried to shirk, and Devon was in charge in the kitchen. If he tells the director about this, then Iram will be fired immediately. Did he understand everything that Devon told him? Devshika tried to protect Iram, telling the boss that the young man left the kitchen not in his own opinion and it was true. Then Devon said that Mira was only on probation. Devon asked if the young man came out unintentionally. This is not some diner, he told Mira. There are no exceptions to the rules. Mira said that now Devon has crossed the line and she will be fine if she gets fired. Devon told Mira that the girl was too sensitive, perhaps because she liked the young man. She asked if the boss thought it was appropriate in such a situation. Then if this was not the case, then what was the matter? Mira replied that some things could be said out loud, and some could not. Devon continued, and the girl said she didn't want to talk to him anymore. Iram apologized, turning to the head of the kitchen and said that he would not make such a mistake again and apologized again. Iram was walking home and heard people chattering. They were talking about donberry with pork, which they were ready to wait for if the thing was worthwhile. Delicious things are worth the wait. How long did I have to wait for Irama to make it happen? Previously, Iram dreamed of opening an institution where people would not have to wait for a long time. But now it was not feasible. Temporary loss of sense of taste and smell. Sunbi was asked when he was going to return. Was Iram really going to stop working? Was he sure about it? All the words that he heard sounded in the young man's head. The young man believed that he continued to hold on to his illusory dream so stupidly, and returned to reality. The freshness of the air, the smell of grass, as expected. A walk among the trees in the game is more pleasant than in life. Of course, it was better than getting drunk on Saju. The young man got a new skill by defeating the lizard princess, and decided that he needed to try it out. He could climb to a height of 20 meters, and climbing a palm tree, Rice realized how it works. I felt like Spider-Man. It was a little scary for him, but since it was a game, maybe he could let go of his hands. But then climbing the palm trees he saw a beautiful sunset. Although it was a game, but it was more intense for the young man than real life. He didn't want to leave this place. Everything here was filled with life.